throwing at a net. He goes 0 for 3, and the last throw is so bad, he misses the net completely, and then he gets ticked off. How do I know this matters? Because they deleted it after a while because it was getting so much play. There's also a story out there where J.J. McCarthy's throwing red zone picks, and, quote, he's working on his touch because everything's a fastball, which you'd hope guys get figured out, at college. So when a quarterback is unproven, like Caleb Williams or like J.J. McCarthy, camp matters more, not just for the player, for the staff. When you haven't shown your competency, when you haven't shown your aptitude, a player's confidence. I mean, you can see on that net video, that was in Caleb's head. And the coaching staff, there's a story that J.J. McCarthy is struggling in the red zone with picks. Well, Kevin O'Connell is watching that and thinking to himself, okay, this is practice. Can I call stuff during games? On the road, he can't hear. I mean, the advantage to having a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson or a Patrick Mahomes or a Joe Burrow, you can use the whole playbook all over the field. All over the field. You start throwing red zone picks in practice, you're closing parts of the playbook. And for an offensive coach like a Kevin O'Connell or a Ben Johnson, they don't want to close any of the playbook. I saw a story this weekend where Joe Burrow, I actually saw the video of this. So they got Noah Fant, a tight end from Denver. They got Noah Fant. And Burrow, second practice with him, up and down the field in practice. Of course, it's Joe Burrow. So that just tells Zach Taylor, a couple practices with Noah Fant. We'll throw to him at any point, anywhere, trailing, leading, red zone. It doesn't matter. All this stuff matters.
Okay. So I understand what Colin is saying here. And there's some truth, but we're really missing things here, though, too, at the same time. Okay? Because, and people do this notoriously, where they keep using, like special elite talents as a reference point. And we do this, like, with Tom Brady all the time, right? Well, Tom Brady was able to do, Peyton Manning was able, and it's just like, we're talking about, like, the greatest quarterbacks ever. Joe Burrow has been a victim of his franchise. And I feel as though Chicago Bears fans should understand this deeply. They should understand because they've been part of the ride of just a poorly run franchise. That Joe Burrow, pretty much with any other franchise, is literally an all-time great talent. I mean, Joe Burrow is special. So to use Joe Burrow as a reference point of what he can do in a practice, it's like, well, it's Joe Burrow. It's Joe Burrow. And to compare that now to two young quarterbacks, it's like, come on here. And I understand now Caleb Williams is in year 2 and J.J. McCarthy is in year 1, but year 2, right? Whatever. And I'm going to keep this more focused on Caleb more than anything. But I'm expecting some struggles. Like, to just go back to J.J. McCarthy for a second, like, he's throwing picks in the red zone. Yeah, this is like the first time that he's played football, like, in a year. And he's essentially a rookie. And things are happening real fast, and he's got to get resituated. He's got to get re-identified with his own body, etc., etc. Like, there's a lot here. And Caleb Williams has a new coach and he's now being coached in a way that he's never been coached in his entire life. He's being coached at a level, with a level of intensity and a quality that he's never had in his entire life. So there's a lot of moving parts right now. And Ben Johnson is definitely taking the approach of, I am throwing every single thing at you, and let's just see what happens. Let's see where you thrive. Let's see where you fail. Let's see. And also, what people keep failing to acknowledge, and don't get me wrong, that net video was not the best. I could hit those targets. But it doesn't mean that just something in like an isolation, just because you fail a drill or you just do poorly at a drill, and we just see like one clip, like, it's just, you can't take a random snapshot out of practice. There's this one video of Caleb kind of scrambling, and he makes a throw that ends up getting intercepted, which I'm sure you guys have seen. And on one side, you could say, well, he was kind of expecting that the receiver was going to kind of keep going this way, and he didn't. So that's like kind of part of that chemistry, as well as just him, like, I don't know, making a bad throw, and you just realizing, like, hey, don't do that next time. And it's just like, we see that isolation. We're like, look how ugly of a throw that is. And it's like, I can show you every quarterback making ridiculously ugly, bad, terrible throws. And then there was another play of Caleb Williams throwing a touchdown pass. Now, it was a schemed throw and all of that. It was a beautiful play design by Ben Johnson and beautiful execution. And you see Caleb Williams, execute it as well as you ever would need to. And it was perfect. But, like, you don't really see that clip go. In fact, I saw that clip on a coaching, social media. And it was more just highlighting, like, the play design itself rather than, oh, look at Caleb Williams. And so that's where things kind of start to splinter out from one another. But at the same time, like what Colin is saying is like this stuff matters. And to a degree, he's right, because when you are a coaching staff, it doesn't matter like what your preconceived notions were about players, what your beliefs about these players are or were, or what the fans are saying, or what the owner, like you are there to evaluate who is Caleb Williams, who is JJ McCarthy. And not only that, like, what are they showing me right now? What are they showing me right now today? And if I'm not seeing what I need to see out of them, now a coach has to figure out, what do I need to do here? What's the play here? Do I need to, Caleb Williams, let's just use that one example of him. Trying to think of what a good is. I always try to think of like the most basic elementary examples to kind of build off of, but let's just use that interception, where he was kind of scrambling, right? It's not going to be the perfect example, but you'll have to just run with it. A coach sees that. Ben Johnson sees that. And is he now saying, again, you're going to have to just run with this example. Ben Johnson's either like, your footwork were really bad here. Like you can make that play, but like your footwork was off, your arm dropped a little bit. Like, I need you to drive more. If you drive more, if you do this, you do that, you'll be able to get the velocity off of it, out of your fingertips, and you'll be able to catch it. Or he's just like evaluating and being like, no, that was terrible. I never want you to do that ever again. Or, this guy is good enough to make those plays. He failed in this moment. I have to figure out how I can have him understand when there's the time and place to try to attempt that throw. That was actually a pretty nice play. The fact that he got it off, but him and the receiver are just not on the same, they're not on the same wavelength right now. We got to figure out how we can get that on the wavelength, because a play like that will end up being huge down the stretch. Like, you have to kind of troubleshoot. You have to kind of go through the whole process and be like, what is the story here? Is my quarterback just not good enough at all, right? Like, there's so much evaluation, and this is what kind of Colin was kind of saying in terms of like the playbook. Like, what plays am I going to call? What am I going to do? And that is where right now, having a Ben Johnson as the head coach is such an interesting situation here, because right now, Ben Johnson very much has an idea of the offense that he wants to run, that he wants to execute. Not so much of, I'm looking at Caleb Williams, I'm seeing what he does great, what he does not do great, and I'm going to build an offense around that. I'm going to build game plans around that. So to me, it sounds like the first step for Ben Johnson and this offense is like, I'm trying to execute my vision of how we can optimally run this offense, no matter who's the quarterback, no matter who's on the field. We're going to see if we can do that. And if not, if it's failing, then the next step is, okay, I need to now change this offense. I need to change my approach to fit this more within Caleb Williams. We talked about this like a couple weeks ago. And sometimes a coach reaches the decision, you know what? No. The way how I can run my offense, like the plays are there. They're perfect. They're great. I need a quarterback who can do this. This said quarterback can't. And that's what we saw with Sean Payton and Russ. It was like, Sean Payton was like, I'm not here to change what I want to do offensively. Russ, you either are able to do it or you can't. And if you can't, I don't want you as my quarterback. I'm not saying that you're a bad quarterback. I'm not saying you're terrible, but I'm running this offense and you can't do it how I want you to. So get out of here. And then he brought in Bo Nix and was able to run the offense in the way that he wanted to. And there's other coaches that are like, I'm here to try to figure out how to build an offense around you and the quarterback. So it's just like, it says, is it too early to worry about Caleb? Yes, because I'm anticipating struggles. Because if Caleb didn't have any struggles left in him, then he would already, he would be so elite, so larger than life, And it's just like, what standard do we have set here? That Caleb Williams either has to be the greatest quarterback we've ever seen by year 2, or he's just a bust and it's over and it's done for. It's just too extreme, which is why I poke and say, why are we comparing him to Joe Burrow? Why do we compare it to Tom Brady, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes? It's like, these are some of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever witnessed, and we're now also holding them to the standard of, well, it's year 5 for them, year 6, years, like it's been years, and they've now been exposed to high quality coaching for years. That's not the case for a Caleb Williams right now. That's not the case for a JJ McCarthy. So I think there's 2 paths here, and I'll end it after this. That at the end of the day, with someone like a Caleb Williams, is he will either be a quarterback that can run the offense in Ben Johnson's eyes and do all the things that Ben Johnson sees fit, or Caleb Williams is just the type of quarterback who he can't do it, which is fine. There's plenty of great elite starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, again, Russell Wilson, I think, is probably a perfect example of this. He's been able to make a career, and yet he was not the type of quarterback who could just run any coach's system. Like, that's not his flavor of greatness, and yet he's had a prolific career and was a Hall of Famer right up until he got to Denver, quite frankly. And there could be a real possibility that that's just not where Caleb Williams thrives. And he will have to find himself a coach who's like, I'm here to work around you. I'm here to build around you. I do feel as though we've seen enough out of Caleb Williams where he will still be, like, again, will he be able to be elite? Will he be able to be this generational, like, all-time great talent? Again, that's all up in the air. But there is a legitimate possibility where you're just like, he's struggling to run the style of offense that Ben Johnson ultimately wants to run. And then it does become a fascinating question where you're like, well, does Ben Johnson need to change to fit Caleb Williams, or do you need to get Caleb Williams out and get Ben Johnson, the quarterback, who can run his offense? And I don't know if there's not 100% right or wrong answer. There's really not. There's not a 100% right or wrong answer in that regard. And sometimes more often than not, it's a combination, right? It's not this all or nothing where a Ben Johnson who has like clearly a vision of how he wants to run an offense, that if he has a quarterback that can't run it, that he's just like, I have to now throw everything out the window. Like, it's not that extreme either. Like I always kind of talk about it, it's like you got to stick the landing, you got to thread the needle, you kind of have to figure it out. And so that in a way is what kind of Colin is talking about. Like, a coaching staff is observing their quarterbacks struggle or succeed. It's all information for them to now evaluate and figure out, what decisions do I need to make? What do I need to do to get this quarterback to succeed? And some of the struggles that I'm seeing, is there growth that will take place through those struggles? Or is this just an indicator that said quarterback is just failing? And it's like, no matter how hard I try, I will never be an astrophysicist for NASA. So you can give me all the textbooks, all the work, and all the tutors, and I'll keep failing. But it's not like, well, he's eventually going to learn. And it's like, no, I'm not. NASA will never hire me as an astrophysicist. And other times through that process, it's like, he really does not understand string theory, but he's actually really good at a lot of the mathematical equations here. Let's transition more into algebra. Like, yeah, you're not a theoretical physicist over here, but like, actually, there's you would be perfect for troubleshooting programming issues and going through all the data and finding the flaws in some of the math here. Like, it's like, and so you kind of find your path. And so, but that is where having an experienced coach who's been around the block once or twice significantly helps. And we can see where an experienced coach, it's why someone like a Sean McVay was able to make Baker Mayfield kind of succeed like from the jump with him, rather than if you brought even like a younger, still a high quality offensive head coach, but younger, didn't have the same level of experience, hasn't had to adapt, hasn't had to work with as many different types of quarterbacks throughout the years, that you could say like, okay, this guy is a great coach, but he doesn't quite know how to navigate the ups and downs of dealing with various quarterbacks. And that remains to be seen of Ben Johnson. He has limited experience at that point. So to me, it's just a lot more of a nuanced conversation than we give it credit for. But I already know people are just, they take things to the extreme. And yeah, I mean, even this image, like I'm looking at, it's like, yeah, I'll just leave it there. I'll just leave it there. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, the Chicago Bears? Do you think it's too early to worry about Caleb? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.